Now we can't.
I was on. Shall I remove the video? Is it better now?
Yeah, it is better now. Yeah, please carry on.
Oh, God, I don't know. I mean, the last 1 hour, the video was okay. Suddenly, there seems to be a problem. Sorry about that. So let me. I was just talking about. It's been a proud moment to be part of this occasion. As the theme of the meeting or the conference says, Kerala looks ahead. It's been a very well planned session, and the way I saw the way you have structured the sessions, you planned it so well. A lot of thematic discussions have happened, and then we're talking about the roadmap, and then we're talking about this session today. All this is very evident of the kind of the long-term vision that the state planning board, the government has to take Kerala to the greater heights, especially in the tech industry in the years to come. I'm not using the word IT, or I'm using it as tech industry, because today it is all about tech and its application in various areas, in various other industries, and various other domains. As you're all aware, this tech industry has been one of a continuous undulating transformation. But this has been more of an opportunity for all of us. This technological revolution, like about, has been a complex one. It's been ever experienced before, but then it's been a great opportunity for everyone. I'm sure all of you will agree that today the need to adopt technology, the need to continuously innovate in this competitive world is extremely critical, and of course helps us in a myriad ways in terms of opportunity. Today, the transformation is so all-encompassing. Today, the fusion of technologies is like nothing ever before. There is hardly any difference, or the lines are blurring between the physical world, the digital world, and the biological sphere. It's all today. It's not technology for the sake of technology, but for its usage and ramification in various domains. And I'll give you a quick example on this. One is the fast track innovation that we're talking about, right? I mean,
Sorry, again, we lost you, Mr. Srikanth.
If humankind talked about what happened to, I'll talk to the latest the designed.
I think we are losing you in between.
This is how
Mr. Srikanth, we are not able to hear you. I think when you were on audio only, we were able to hear you better. I think when the video pops up, we are not able to hear you.
For all of us. I'm going back. Okay, let me. Okay, is it okay now?
Yeah, this is better. Yeah.
Okay, let me try now. Okay, so I think I was talking about one of the largest innovations in time in humankind. I talked about for the sake of repetition, I will talk about it. The first vaccine that humankind saw in 1796, the smallpox vaccine, was actually found, or rather discovered, almost up to 250 years after the disease was found to be existing. But look at the current situation today, where I think you have a vaccine in less than 12 months, and that's the power of technology which is actually happening. That's the digital transformation which is impacting our life. I was talking about the impact between physical, digital, and biological spheres, and you can see a live example of that amidst us today. Now going back a little, I've personally been to Kerala on a number of occasions as part of my job. And I've gone across the three main geos, and I've seen some phenomenally great work happening there, be it Trivandrum, be it Kochi, be it Kozhikode. I've had the opportunity to meet with a number of companies, both the large ones, the small ones, the budding ones, the startups, and so on and so forth. See, to basis the theme that we are talking about today in terms of the emerging trends in digital transformation, which is the topic that I wanted to cover. there are a number of technologies which are actually impacting, which are finding a lot of growth, both vertically and horizontally. If you look at some of the new technologies that are impacting, which are contributing to the growth of the industry, IoT or big data analytics, artificial intelligence is contributing in a very large way. Even things like 3D printing is actually accelerating the pace of the adoption of technology. It's accelerating the pace of doing a lot of things. And I'm sure many of you have read how recently an entire building was 3D printed by, I think, L&T, if I'm not wrong, which was in a media news recently, and how it could accelerate, the power of technology could accelerate something that a physical construction would take a very, very long time. So this is how technology has transformed. And these are technologies which are going to create the jobs of the future, the professionals of the future. But again, there are other things that the other emerging technologies with multiple applications across domains, which are really having a lot of impact today. Typically, we've all heard about blockchain, and I'm sure all of you know its various ramifications. Even things like the nano sensors, the subvocal recognition, a lot of encryption and quantum cryptography is actually coming to the fore now, given more so in a virtual world with so much of the cyberspace getting more and more cramped, more and more probably unsafe, and needing that much more security. Some of these things are actually going to contribute in a very large way to the technology and eventually to the industry. Now, coming to, and of course, the domains, and I think Mr. Shubulal rightly pointed out, right? Healthcare and education are two areas which we never even thought, right? I mean, how many of us would have thought 1 year ago that we will go and have a virtual checkup, or for some of the schools, a virtual classroom? But today, the entire life is going around it. And many of these things have been great examples of digital transformation. And some of these newer technologies, whether it is AR, VR, or 3D, have all contributed to it. And I'm sure those will be those technologies that will contribute to the growth in the future also. Now, coming to a little ahead, going a little ahead on what we can do and how the state can benefit. See, my personal view is that the three key areas which any state will need to grow in the industry, one is the basic infrastructure, the second is the social infrastructure. And now, social infrastructure and physical infrastructure is something I think the state is already well versed with. Skilling, yes, is already there in a very large way, and I have been part of some of the discussions with many of the key stakeholders in the state. But again, skilling and education is one piece that it's never enough, right? I mean, it's like the more the merrier is the story here. The better skill you have, the better it is that can contribute to the industry. So this is one area where we can continue to do more, be it organic skilling or inorganic skilling. Organic in terms of what we can do at the college level, at the university level, how we can kind of get them incorporated either at an apprenticeship or an internship level, get them to speed on various new technologies in the industry so that they are ready when they come to the jobs. Or the inorganic piece where there are a good number of people already employed, but then what they learned, what they have been doing need not be relevant tomorrow given the pace of transformation. So how do we rework with them, ensure that they are more meaningful for the rest of their career? They may still be having a career of another 10, 15, 20 years. So how do we kind of use them during that phase also? So that's very, so these are two, so from a skilling standpoint, I think this is one area that we need to put continuous focus. And again, I think today there are no major barriers given, and I think COVID has taught us all of that. So today it is all about democratization. There is an opportunity which is available for all. So and there is a platform available for everybody. If that can be used, I'm sure some of these technologies can reach the masses. And of course, from an innovation standpoint, I think the state is already doing very fairly well. But if, in my personal view, if the industry has to do well, there's only one piece, and that is a talent with a higher digital capability and the ability to continuously upgrade. If these two things they are available, the ability of the capability of the talent to have a higher digital learning and an ability to upgrade, I think nothing can stop from growing. coming to the recommendation on what the state can do, I was very pleasantly surprised to see that there are a number of policies that the state has already got, either in terms of cloud policy, in terms of data center, and so on and so forth. But then again, some of these may be existing, but some of these may not be even talked about for the larger outside world. And as they say, right, it's a competitive world. And so and other states are rejigging the policy, doing their version 2.0s all the time. It may be good for Kerala also to do it, because some of these may be there but not known to others. So it'd be good to once in a while go and advertise all this. In that sense, you have to keep marketing this all the time to ensure that it reaches the masses. But some of these policies will definitely take the state a long way. Be it the data center policy, where you can start building more and more NOCs, or the cybersecurity policy, which encourages organizations to build their security operation centers in the state, which will again be a big boost of cybersecurity professionals, which is the need of the hour, or an animation and gaming piece, which again is again a large growing area. This is another area that we could kind of work with. So these are some of the initial thoughts that I have. We are happy to kind of work with you, and as NASCOM, we are committed to work with each and every state to see how we can help you in this policy building. We can have this discussion separately and help you take it forward, because the vision for India in the technology sector is to reach a 500 billion by 2030, and this is not going to happen by just one city or one state, but by the entire country. So we need to kind of join hands together to make it happen, and we are committed to make it happen, and we'll work together to make it happen. And last but not the least, I would want to say, kind of conclude with this quote, which Jack Welch once said: "If you don't have a competitive advantage, don't compete." Which essentially means that if you're an individual or an organization or a state, you need to create that competitive edge all the time, every time, to be competitive. And I'm sure Kerala is already doing this, and we can continuously do this to kind of take the state forward or propel it to the next higher level. With that, I will kind of pause and take some questions. Thank you very much. And sorry
Thank you, Mr.
for the video quality. I don't know what happened suddenly. Sorry about that.
No issues. Thank you so much, Mr. Srikanth. I think a few important, interesting points: the basic physical infrastructure, social infrastructure, and skill infrastructure is something that you talked about. Yeah. And you also touched upon the policies on data center, cloud, cybersecurity, and interestingly, you talked about animation and gaming, which may be interesting for Kerala also, because we also have been told that we have better talent in gaming and animation. So thank you for those. And when we come back to the next round, there may be questions specific to some of the points that you mentioned. So kindly stay back, sure. And thanks for all your inputs. May I kindly move on to Mr. Nanda Kumar? Firstly, I wanted to thank Mr. Nanda Kumar because you are coming as our guest second time. I know you are extremely busy, not even in Kerala, but we managed to emotionally perhaps attractive, because you have a lot of passion about Kerala, and anything that we talk about Kerala, you are there. So firstly, thanks a lot for coming in second time. Mr. Nanda Kumar is the founder, president, and CEO of Suntech Business Solutions. He has been a technology evangelist in software realm for over 26 years for customer-centric software platforms and solutions, specifically for pricing and billing in the transaction-intensive verticals. Relationship-based pricing, a concept pioneered by him, has been endorsed by leading industry and analysts and thought leaders across the globe. Under his leadership, Suntech witnessed tremendous growth with its geographical footprint spanning across 4 continents and powered by over 900 passionate professionals. He has also led Suntech to win several prestigious global awards, including Celent Model Bank, Red Herring Global 100, Deloitte Technology Fast India 50, and Deloitte Technology Fast Asia Pacific 500, and so forth. He holds a master's degree in management and physics. I would say that he is a homegrown, authentic Kerala-based business leader, because he started his career in a public PSU in Kerala as a software engineer and learned from it to start on his own. So thank you so much, and over to you, Mr. Nanda Kumar. As we said, you gave a lot of very interesting insights in the last session, and you also gave some impetus for our policy documentations, etc. So we wanted to take it a little forward and wanted your specific advice to Kerala in terms of what are the short-term and perhaps long-term areas that we can look at. Over to you.
Thank you, Santosh. Before I start, first of all, thank you for this opportunity, and Honorable Chief Minister and Professor V. K. Ramachandran and Vice Chairman of Planning Board, and for having me here. Thank you, all of you. As Santosh, as you mentioned, yes, the Kerala is in my heart. It is not 26 years. I think it's CV slightly 4 years old. And it's almost 30 years now. It's in 1990 when I started.
Sorry about that.
No, that is fine. The point is, yes, 100% grown from Kerala. I work in public sector in Keltron, and there are many things which government did at those days, which helped me to take this plunge and do this. I would like to touch upon that. And so within the context of what we are talking today, I was thinking about it. By the way, is it possible for me to share some presentation?
Absolutely, yeah.
All right. Let me just.
You have always been very, very short in your presentations, so I still request you to be within that.
Right. It's okay. I'll try to do that. Okay. This is the.
You can see your desktop.
Yeah. Yep. So the topic is software. Opportunity in the software sector. But before I get there, let me. When I was thinking about it, just to give a little bit of background for others, because I completely start from Kerala and Indian context, and completely dedicated to software product for the last 30 years. And we've been able to learn from our experience in India and take that into the global landscape. And we pretty much now, as we speak today, we pretty much cover all the continents across the world with our customer base, right? From Australia all the way to North America to even South America recently. So many of the points which people like what Shibilal mentioned earlier, and also Ms. Rai, who was talking about learning from the local and taking it to the global, is very, very, we have benefited from that strategy. So fully endorse that kind of thought process. That's the number one. And I also will touch upon my thought in terms of how we are preparing. And we always remain, people talk about digital transformation today. We talked about this in 2000. In the midst of the internet technologies that happened, because we just wanted to be ahead of the game, being a product organization, and trying to come out with a solution that would be the relevance of future. So my thoughts will be slightly skewed towards that, just a bailout upfront. So normally I would say you should leapfrog. There's no point in catching up with the, that's my personal strategy. So my thoughts are slightly skewed towards it. Just with that caveat, let me start. I think we should at least look at for the next 10 years, what the world will be in 2030 to cast ourselves of the strategy, of which I just looked at two organizations. One is, of course, UN, who has defined what's their goal for 2030. If you really look at this, it is very, very fundamental, like no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, and quality of education. Some of the things we should not be even talking about in today's world, right? But that's reality. That means it also shows inequality. So there is the only takeaway for me from this slide is there's a phenomenal opportunity to bring in equality and value to the human being. Even though we have it, it is still not getting into a level playing ground. I think digital transformation should create a flat world, and that's the whole idea about the potential of digital transformation, because nobody is going to be spending significantly, or there will not be, the world will be more transparent, like the blockchains, which distributed informations and distributed intelligence, which I call this, that's a kind of possibility that's coming, and trust internet. The kind of stuff that would make it available will definitely be defining the future. So can we be prepared for such a value-driven world? And then the second one, which I looked at, what is the ambition, what World Economic Forum is projecting in terms of the world of 2030. So some of the things that are relevant here, very important. I just really would love to go through that. Like, all products will become services, right? I mean, that is when I am, rather than saying services, maybe solutions and service, because both physical and what you saw in Uber, no more cars, it's mobility. I just want my mobility need to be fulfilled. Tomorrow it could be the house that is becoming, instead of, I may not be buying the house, I might be living in a, what you call right to live in any of the type of houses. So that kind of possibilities. And there'll be global, these are the predictions of World Economic Forum, there will be global price on carbon. And one of the interesting aspects about what we, within the context of us, is the healthcare, which is hospital will become hospital, right? It's home-based, this thing. And these are some of the predictions. I'm not getting too much into this. But what is important is what would be the software industry at that time? What will everything is changing. Will the software industry also change? Absolutely. There's a software 2.0. What we talk about at that time, people talk about like there will not be the software. Sorry, not the software industry. What's the relevance of software industry? That's the point which I want to highlight here. That means the software industry will be the fundamental substrate for making all this transformation. So there's no need to talk about the relevance of this industry. But the software industry itself will change. There will be scenarios where there are people talking about why software developers, by 2030, software developers will be obsolete. There is one school of thought about in that direction. And in the future, everyone will be a software engineer, and barely anyone will be know how to code. But what is meant here is that the software industry, software coding or development, as we see today, may not be existing in the future. This software 2.0 will be a completely different way of programming. So we need to be equipped for that kind of environment. Then, and the technology that are coming, what we saw in the last 2 decades is only a tip of the iceberg, and it is going to be significant technologies like the quantum computing, completely AI-driven, domain-specific hardware, distributed intelligence, the blockchain V2. I'm not getting into details of it, but this is the kind of world we need to be prepared for. So and this is the kind of what is the Gartner's prediction in terms of how the technologies are evolving. I'm not going too much into it, but let me just come to this particular point. So basically, the world which we see, the software industry at that time will be completely a different software industry 2.0, which will be predominantly driven by machine learning or deep learning as a basic substrate of thinking. And in the short term, LC and low-code, no-code platforms will make a huge impact. That will be the next 2 to 5 years. But while code generating platforms, AI-based code generators will come into play. But at the end of the day, if you really look at 2030, we won't be programming the computers, but we will be training the computers. So that's the kind of coding skills that's required. So when we talk about equipping ourselves, planning for the next decade, at least start with what is required for 2025 to then, by the time we will prepared, we will be ahead of the game, and 2030 we will be ready with the scenario. So that's to start with. Now, I'm a passionate person about software products because the exponential value it is giving. So from that point of view, whenever we are thinking about product and services for the future, we need to create products that do more with less. So that is a fundamental driver. So the case in point is SpaceX. Just take the simple fact from 1970 to 2000, the launch cost was in the range of $18,500. What SpaceX was able to achieve last month or 2 months back when they sent the first Dragon capsule to ISS, the ISS, it was at the cost of $2,720, from 20,000 to the 10x difference. So that's the kind of thought process that should be designing consideration objectives we should put forward in our product design and thinking process. Another dimension is about designing by the first principles. We should not be thinking about trying to meet the products of today. Can we imagine what would be the need of tomorrow and designing for that? So you definitely, that is the ultimate objective, but with the lean minimum viable product models, you can start with the different phases towards that and look at, that's the kind of strategies we should adopt. Now, people talked about Kerala's advantage. I'm not getting into this big time. And there are companies, this is First IT Park, more than good. I think we have definitely have created enough capacity and infrastructure. There's a lot more to be done, definitely. But it has got technology parks in infrastructure, and we should, and it is ideally suited for more intellectual activity. We cannot take large manufacturing industries here, and it is well suited for leveraging this potential which is which is evolving the world. So, but most important thing is, can we create a single team under which we can drive this journey? So we can't be doing everything. Just like what Taiwan has become the electronic hub of the world, or China, as we just saw the presentation, how they within 20 years now becoming this semiconductor hub of the world. With that, which is one with a very mission-based approach, can we learn from that and try to create the journey based on a theme? I think one of the greatest opportunity is leveraging the digital transformation story, which is domain-specific and which is IP-based and a platform-based approach, building that. So I'm not getting into the pool talent, all that has been talked about. I am not getting, I've got a lot of thoughts here. Maybe I can cover that in the during the Q&A session. But as a starting point, we may want to focus on certain industries which we have access to, which is very important. Just to give reflect on my own experience, the first project which I got in India was building the billing system for Indian telecom on those days. So, which in fact on a competitive environment, but subsequently it becomes a national standard. And we had the opportunity to deploy that almost about 200, 250 telecom districts in the country. So that gave us an experience which was unparalleled anywhere in the world, because this is very adverse times, which I'm talking about from 1990 to 95. That experience, like driving in any Indian roads and then going and driving anywhere in the world, right? So that experience was phenomenal for us. So we were able to go into the international market. Our first client outside India happened to be in Netherlands, and we were able to be the largest software vendor at that time with the kind of capabilities, because we were 10x different than our competition in terms of quality, in terms of time, in terms of functionality of the product, what we offered at that time. Because this was a very high-end software, and is more than, it's the most mission critical for a telecom operator. It is a pricing and billing system. If that goes wrong, the entire revenue of the telecom company is at stake. It is such a high mission critical software. So people won't take a decision just because you are cheap. That's not the point. The highest quality and highest reliability is one of the considerations for such. So that was possible because of the experience. So I completely support the kind of conversation that happened earlier. Providing a local support by the government in terms of being the first customer makes a huge difference. That's the case. We are the case in point for that. And so one of the critical things is the ability to visualize the need of the customer before the customer themselves ask for that. This is what you want your customer to be. Designing for that well in advance. So in today's people are all experts in gaming. So you have your avatars and things which we are creating your digital twins, And with that kind of thinking process, what do you want to be, and define that, and then make the customer, take the customer to that journey. So I just listed some of the industries which are very conducive for us to what you call prototype on or build do the POC on for the startup ecosystem. So I'm not getting into all of those. I mean, Kerala has done wonderfully one, both in terms of creating infrastructure and both in terms of startup ecosystems. But we should be thinking in this kind of dimensions. And then I just want to take 1 minute about my own personal experience on how we did this. So, and some of the things which helped me. First one, see, I don't know how many of you know, I was a beneficiary of the Kerala government's startup entrepreneur development scheme announced in 1990 when Technopark was formed. They gave us 5 years leave to start a venture in Technopark. So I took that leave, being a public sector government employed person, to it gave me as that was a what you call a tipping point in making that decision. Then focus on creating a startup ecosystem is that is focused on products, and that we should be because India is already doing great on the services side. So for Kerala, if it has to have a brand, it has to create this, and we should be looking at a high value space. So that should be the brand we should be focused on. Support startup by doing initial business with them. That's exactly the point that has been highlighted earlier. Provide options for providing collateral. This is one of the things which I don't know how much it is relevant today, but this is one thing which hindered our growth. Because in early days, we could not even get finance to buy a computer. So I had to depend on my customer to provide me one, and that's how it happened. To be very frank, had that been available, maybe we would have grown faster than at that time. Encourage employees of IT companies or bigger entrepreneurs to support that kind of thing. I mean, not even that. I mean, the startup ecosystem, something similar to that. I mean, entrepreneurship, and encourage educational institutions to join. Faculty to join that the startup startup or be part of that. I mean, it should be only for startup, not for regular employment. This is specifically to help. So that one of the critical things, especially when you're talking about IP based, you need experience and capability and knowledge and thinking ahead of the game. So the kind of technical capability that is required for them is significant, and set up research as a service. I mean, that is something which is very useful in early stages, especially if you're in IP space. Can government invest in research, applied research areas, which the companies cannot, and provide some kind of support for that? Then I think this is just to summarize that world is definitely going to be significant. There's a phenomenal opportunity. We should just leverage. Thank you. Santosh, I thought I'm well within, slightly went ahead. Sorry about it.
No, that's fine, sir. Thank you so much. I think you have already summarized it, so I wouldn't further summarize it, except that I would strongly request you to share this presentation as quickly as possible, because this has got a lot of points that we actually wanted to have in summary. So thank you so much for those. Very quickly, I think some of the domains you mentioned is looking very interesting. In fact, some of them are already under the radar of the government, and I happen to be a part of the IT department, so we were also working on it, like the EVs and the space tech, etc. But interestingly, marine science is something that I captured, which is a very, very strong area, but it never struck us. So
that's
great.
A fantastic area, and we need help them imagine you can make that industry one of the best in the world.
That's true. That's true.
That will be the local incubation opportunity. Then take it to the whole industry.
That's right. Thank you.
The thing which you have a locational advantage.
I do feel so. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, sir. Kindly stay back. Very quickly, moving on to Professor Prahlad Vadakepad. Again, I wanted to thank Professor Prahlad. You are also coming back second time, thanks to your passion for Kerala. Professor Prahlad is the Associate Professor at National University of Singapore, Founder Secretary of Federation of International Robot Soccer Association, FIRA. His contributions in FIRA, even though it may look like a gaming staff, has led to a lot of startups in robotics and embedded system. He's also a chief editor for Springer Journal on frugal education, frugal innovation, and also on humanoid robot. He's a senior member of IEEE, member of Electronics and Communication India, and has started working in NUS from 1999, and is appointed as the master to PGP house in NUS residential institution. He is also a member of Kerala Lok Sabha, Loka Kerala Sabha, the world association initiated by government of Kerala. Interestingly, he has also produced and a full-length feature film which got international accolades. So not only a professor, but also into multiple talented areas. So thank you so much for coming again, sir, and over to you. I know it is fag end of it, but it is a very important area that we wanted you to help us with. Some summary on the points that we discussed from the last hardware session. If we can summarize it in the next 12 minutes time, then we are good to go with a lot of interesting questions are already awaiting all of us. So over to you, sir.
Thanks, Santosh, Honorable Chief Minister, Planning Board members, ladies and gentlemen. It's good afternoon in Singapore, and but it was very interesting to listen to pioneers in the space. A number of people have helped me to prepare this material. I'll thank them. The new mantra that is being coined across is open innovation, co-development, agile development. And I think Nanda Kumar mentioned about do more with less. That's a frugality and sustainability aspect. And also to remove the hierarchy to facilitate innovation, that is inclusive leadership. So the Industry 4.0 was knocking at our doors some time back, but the need of that, or it has become accelerated because of COVID-19. So there are salient aspects to this. More efficient production processes. Deep learning has transformed the machine learning space. So data-driven insights, digital twins are becoming quite pervasively used in industry. And the calculation of remaining useful life of processes, products, where predictive maintenance can come in and you can optimize assets. And that has led to new markets as well as business models. Open innovation is being increasingly preferred and developing together, and a flat structure inclusive leadership. And can we do more with less and can start from scratch as well. So the frugality and sustainable aspects are also becoming very hard. And that has led to a stronger customer-centric approach and more connections, collaborations, externally expandable and infrastructure leading to and flexibility in manufacturing. But there are risks, of course, the security and the physical and cyber assets, because all the cyber physical systems are being connected, and also we have to maximize the uptime. If you look at Shenzhen, they have a plan to focus on chips, AI, and biomedicine to have a GDP growth of 40% over 5 years. And this particular presentation, I'm proposing 5 suggestions. So we'll go through one by one. So first of all, especially when it comes to Industry 4.0, where robotics, smart automation, AI are going to dominate, the technology readiness levels are to be understood clearly. A workshop on TRL for evaluation and management can be done. The 2 slides here indicate the 9 technology readiness levels for robotics technology. And there are system capabilities to be understood, right from configurability to cognitive ability, different levels as well. So for example, autonomous vehicle, we can try to map these system capabilities to the sub areas that are related to, say, autonomous vehicle. So these kinds of mappings are required, and we need to know where we stand. I'll talk about the technology readiness level related structure and model used in Singapore later. So this is a very important thing. People are talking about how do you make it successful, bridging the valley of death. And we can adopt certain models. So I'm trying to talk about the Advanced Remanufacturing and Technology Center in Singapore. and where I am collaborating with, they have a concept wherein why not do core joint projects, solving common industrial problems through cost sharing. So small, medium enterprises, even OEMs can come in. So there are different tiers to these kinds of collaborations. And then create and share best-in-class knowledge and do the early core development with supply chain. And membership is there. So this is a initiative by the government, private-public partnership. And if you want to be a member, there are different layers to that. And depending upon where you are, so there are projects for the individual members as well. And then you can have bilateral or tripartite agreements through this particular center. And the most interesting part of this, that technology readiness levels 1 to 3, that is a research level, and reach 7, then we can go to the development process. And basically that is to address the value of the death in innovation. And then to go to the technology readiness 9, where you have the production happening. So this is, it is available from astar.edu.st/ARTC. The next is a model from South Korea. I lived in South Korea. I started my postdoctoral fellowship there. I got into robotic soccer, and many were not accepting robotic soccer at that time, as early as 1996. So they have a ministry to oversee robot industry. Intelligent Robot Development and Promotion Act was enacted in 2008, and robot industry was enhanced by expanding the demand base. And this is very important. Local demand has to be improved. And so market creation and building proper infrastructure is essential. And that leads to how to create demand and how to create a social awareness. So if you look at Japan and Korea, most of the products, the local demand is high. And if it is coconics, I was so happy to hear about it. Can we create that awareness? So SMEs were given with collaborative robots where humans and robots can work together. So safety certification is required. And then enhanced social awareness of robots also brought in. And then enhancing innovation capabilities for the robot industry, parts development, because 50% of the cost will be going for the parts and components and software. So we have to have some priority-based R&D. And then that led to clustering of regional robot industry to support each other. And that I've seen in as early as 1997. The next is a practice story where open innovation frugality, borderless multi and cross-disciplinary approach for addressing complex problems. Can we reinvent the wheel? Yes, we can do it. So emergency ventilators were developed in Kochi with an open innovation concept where 3 companies, 2 of my startups from Singapore, 1 from Kochi came together, and we tried to keep our borders open. A number of people from Singapore, my colleagues from National University of Singapore, US, Europe, India, even Indonesia helped us to really identify how to manage certain things. So this is a 3D printing company and a Symblast from Smart City Kochi. Arvi is a predictive maintenance deep learning company started by my scholars, and we started as an inventor consortium. We develop emergency care solutions. 3 of them, there are different areas. Not everything we knew, but we learned on the fly. And the most important aspect is the frugality, do more with less. Most of the features, the majority of the features will cost only 20%. They say 80-20 Pareto optimality. And if you look at the utility, the 80% will be more useful and important. So it is not to reduce simply by stripping down. We need to see how much we require, in what segment, and what kind of environment we want to use. The 5th one is robot operating system can be adopted in academics, research, and by industries. So I teach this and I use this in my modules. And this is also being used in industry. It can reduce the development cost a lot because it has got a physics engine and you can import CAD drawings into your space, your apartment. If you want to put a robot or a hospital, bring the design from the CAD software or architectural software into the space, make a robot function in that. There are library functions for actuation, for sensors, all kinds of algorithms. And this is so hot and is so useful to people. So there is a ROS Industrial Consortium headed by ARTC Singapore, and the consortium of the companies which we have formed in March 2020 attended this. Now we are into manipulators and industrial robots development. And this is a very attractive thing that we can really work out in academics, industry. And I think there are some books written by a Malayali in Kerala, but I don't remember his name at this moment. So the proposals are, we can have a workshop on technology readiness levels, understand and we can adopt models that we have seen elsewhere. So something similar to advanced remanufacturing and technology centers. And government support to industry, especially robotics industry, can be improved, and South Korea model is there, and there are other models too. And we can try to encourage and help through open innovation frugality, and especially when it comes to robotics and smart innovation, robot operating system can be adopted in academics for research as well as by industry. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Attract, nurture, and retain. Thank you very much.
That is a fantastic presentation, sir. I think it was a very grounded one because you have already given a strategic spin in the last session. Can somebody who is on unmute may kindly mute back? I understand that it is very difficult sometimes, but appreciate it. So thank you, sir. I think again, it has got certain case studies which could perhaps be extrapolated onto other areas. You spoke about robotics because that's your passion, but I believe not just robotics, it could perhaps be extrapolated onto many other things like having industry academia partnership, utilizing a combination of industry academia and experts can probably bring in together a lot of benefits across. So that was a fantastic thing. And also creating a TRL kind of a thing, again, for a smaller medium industry and specific verticals, using the templates that you have shared is something that could perhaps be looked upon by the Kerala government. So thanks a lot, gentlemen. I think I happen to be in forums which has got very passionate business leaders, and even though the time is imposed on me, I completely lose out because listening to your presentations are so wonderful that I just lose out on my timing. So apologies to the planning board who has kept a very, very interesting structure to go around. But we still have not lost a lot of time. We still have some more time for open questions. But before that, I just wanted to, while the open questions are coming in, I just wanted to go across to our esteemed guest and pose a couple of questions which are pertaining from the moderator side, which is being backed by the planning board also. So to Shibilal sir, over to you if you can hear me now. Apart from being a co-founder and a developer of one of the fantastic legacy organization called Infosys, you also of late works into the startup ecosystem. Accelerator Ventures, in fact, which is co-founded by you, Mr. Chris, and a few others, is also doing extremely well. And you have come across quite a lot of very interesting startups across the country. And you have also been working indirectly and observing the startup ecosystem in Kerala. So to you, what are the kind of similarities and what are the kind of practices that you may want to suggest or you may want to articulate based on your startup Accelerator Venture experience to Kerala government?
So thank you, Santosh. So as I said, actually, if I look at the startups at Accelerator, one of the interesting thing I noticed is that collectively they have come back to 90%, close to 90% of their pre-COVID activity levels, pre-COVID revenue levels, which speaks of the fact that if you have a solution, if you have a product which is relevant to the market, then I think market will continue to adopt it even through difficult times, while there will be a short dip. If I look at Axelor, the focus is in 3 or 4 areas. And one of the areas which I am very passionate about is in healthcare. So in healthcare, I see a number of startups which are coming up. For example, Niramai, one of our startups, which is into breast cancer screening, which is doing very well. It's a different kind of technology for breast cancer screening. In fact, most of the other technologies which are there in this area are quite intrusive and harmful at times, whereas this one is a very interesting technology. There are a couple of other startups which are in optimization of healthcare facilities. For example, how do you optimize the operating theater utilization and things like that. So I think healthcare is a good area for Kerala to look at. It is actually a long incubation area. It is not a short incubation area because there are many regulatory challenges which we need to adopt. So, I was talking about the government's role in some of these things. For example, Kerala has a very strong primary healthcare system, if I'm right. I think they are spread out across the country, across the state. So if Kerala can challenge itself to become the most digitized, first digitized, fully digitized primary healthcare state, which means every healthcare center should be digitized, every health record should be digitized. They are across the state and many of them in rural areas. So if you take on a challenge like that, right, and energize the ecosystem, energize the startup ecosystem to come up to speed and how to do this. So, one thing which the government can do is to set up audacious goals for the startup ecosystem. Right, startups are looking for problems. They are not, they are looking for more and more challenging problems. I have talked about this before. If Kerala can become the first zero cash state, how can Kerala have a completely digital cash ecosystem? Zero cash. And that will create a tremendous amount of, a lot of opportunities for innovation for not only startups, but for medium and small enterprises. So, for example, zero cash, zero carbon. Can Kerala become one of the, the lowest carbon states in the country? Right? Again, those kind of challenges will completely energize not only the ecosystem, it will energize the investment partners. But for this, I think, as I said, government needs to also become one of the first consumers. Right? So every vehicle, can government move towards more of a electric vehicle situation, so that government can become one of the first consumers. So zero cash, zero carbon, zero waste. These kinds of very audacious goals can actually energize the ecosystem.
That's very, very interesting, sir. I think the first digital primary healthcare system is something which I could catch up as something very, very audacious. I'm sure that the planning board team is also listening to it. Zero cash, fully electric, all these are quite interesting and but at the same time challenging questions that government may have opportunity. In fact, Kerala, I think there is a greater opportunity to perhaps set up such audacious goals.
See, Kerala is probably the most, of course, it is the most educated state. It is the most socially advanced state in equality, in opportunity, in everything. So if you can set up these audacious goals, it will not only energize Kerala, it will actually energize the world to work with Kerala. Like, because partners will start flocking into Kerala to fulfill these audacious goals, because there will be a business opportunity associated with each one of this. So it will energize not only Kerala, it will attract investments and it will attract talent and intellect to come into Kerala to work on some of these audacious problems which we can set up.
Fabulous.
Thank you, Santosh.
Okay. Yeah. Meanwhile, panel guests, if you're also able to see some of the chats that are coming in, there are some some interesting comments, appreciation, and requests that are already coming in. So even the planning board team and us, we are going to take a snap of this and make sure that that is being worked out. So thank you so much. I think Professor Jayaraman had one more question to Mr. Shibilal. Sir, would you like to pose that now?
Mr. Shibulal, thank you very much once again for your very sharp and incisive observation. But I recall at the end of your first round of presentation, you said something about having some remarks to make about the infrastructure. So if you would recall that.
Yes, I think, traditionally Kerala has been in the forefront of building infrastructure. Kerala has built the techno parks, the info parks, various other infrastructures, which has attracted companies to come into Kerala, talent to come into Kerala. And of course, the COVID has changed the thinking on some of these aspects. I agree with everyone that COVID will change the working habits of many of these industries. But I am not a firm believer that we will completely go back to a home working environment, right? Which means there are various reasons. The working environment not only provides, it's not only about working, right? It is a place where we get social interaction. It is a place where we build teamwork. Most of these activities, especially what I talked about in the beginning, about moving towards a solution kind of a situation, right? Where various people have to come together to architect the solution, will require physical contact and physical interaction. So while the kind of, in my mind, the kind of infrastructure needed will be different. It could be more distributed. It will be more connected. It will be more modularized, but the investment in infrastructure will have to continue. That is my view. I had another point to make. I think, of course, we also need to bring in what I call cosmopolitan infrastructure. More and more investment into the cosmopolitan infrastructure, which is the surrounding infrastructure, the healthcare, the education, all of those things also will have to continue to happen. So the infrastructure investments, in my mind, will have to continue. They may be in different, shape or form. It will be more decentralized. It will be more connected, but we will need to continue. That is my view on the infrastructure. And actually, most of the young people I talk to can't wait to go back to work, into the office. Okay, into the office, not to work, into the office. Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
In fact, that I think is a very important point for us in the planning board, and I'm sure the government. And just infrastructure investment is key, and thank you for that.
Thank you.
Very quickly, I wanted to go into Mr. Srikanth. If you are there, you're able to hear me?
Yes, I do. Yeah. I do.
I have a question for you in the sense you work with, in the outreach program, you work with other states also. Maybe due to the paucity of time, I just wanted to pick your brains and ask you, is there any best practice that you felt being done in another state which could perhaps be a useful thing to look at for Kerala also? That will be my first part of the question. And secondly, are there any learnings that some other states have gone into which we may not get into? Maybe it would have got into trouble and things like that. So one good practice and one not so great thing that you may want to just warn us for.
Sure. So thank you, Santosh. I think, first of all, again, apologies. I think, I don't know why the video played havoc then. I would rather even now close the video and talk.
Yeah,
so at least the audio is here. I mean, rest it plays more havoc. But see, the question is, the way I would look at it is, and when I said policy and some new additions to the policy, my view was this. It is not about having an all-encompassing large tech industry policy. but about creating multiple small policies, sectoral policies, focused policies, and this has worked well in some states. I will in some of our separate conversations, one-to-one conversations later with the authorities, I'm happy to kind of share those experiences. But what I can definitely tell on this forum is some of these smaller policies have worked very well for some states. I can give and some of the examples that I gave you when I spoke, such as the open data policy or the cybersecurity policy, or even the animation and gaming. Some of these things actually work well because what happens is then it's a very focused approach. And go back to the three things that I talked about: the infrastructure, the social infrastructure, and the skilling. What happens is these three things are like the tripod, the three legs of the stool. If the stool has to stand erect, so if all the three legs of each and every policy is made to work in its own fashion, then it will work well. For example, I'll take the animation and gaming as an example. In animation and gaming, if you have one, you may have the infrastructure that is required by the animation and gaming industry is very different to that of a IT services industry. So how can we do that? How can we ensure that they have the right studios, the right labs, etc., etc., and the right skilling? Maybe for that, the right skilling is not available. The tie-ups are not available in India. Can you go to a Canada or can you go to US to tie up with the right institute and get the right set of people? So each of them needs the additional focus. And I can for sure tell you that whichever state that has done this kind of a focused approach, it has actually worked very, very well for them. So something that you should not be doing. I don't think anything which is gone. I mean, the other part of the question you said has not worked well, etc. I really don't think there's anything of that kind. I would re-stress the fact that you need to talk more about what you do and what you offer, because many states do this. So, and that I know for sure that states who have a lower footprint than Kerala in IT are going ahead and talking many of these things. So it's a question of going and making, for lack of better words, the right noise in the right place. So if you do that, I think your footprint will definitely grow.
I think that's a great suggestion. In fact, I remember Professor Jayaraman also was articulating that in his chat. I think sometimes we are doing some great work, but we don't speak
talk
up.
about it.
And in that context, I think organizations such as NASSCOM should also help us, because you are one of our vehicles to articulate what we do and give us opportunities to speak about it to other states and things like that. So thank you so much for that.
Sure. In fact, Santosh, we are happy to kind of work with you. Our policy team will work with you to kind of do these things. And just I'll take another 30 seconds to tell that even states which are far ahead than Kerala, and we talked about neighboring states, even when states are way ahead, they're still rejigging the policy and trying to, redo it. The version 2.0 and 3.0 is coming. So it's important for us to do this. So it'd be good if Kerala can think through this, and we are happy to support you on this.
Great. Thank you so much, Srikanth.
Thank you.
Moving on to Professor Jairam, any question for Srikanth?
No, I don't have a specific question, but I'm very, very struck by Mr. Srikanth's point about rejigging policy. You will recall that the Honorable Chief Minister himself had indicated this, and I'm sure you picked that signal up. And your offer to provide inputs into such a rejigging process is most welcome. And this is something the state will follow up with you. I just want to make that point very clear. And your suggestions about specific policies rather than perhaps overall catch-all policy. And we will follow this up. We will be in touch with you. Definitely. Thank you.
In fact, on the IT policy, if I may take 30 seconds, sir, the way it was articulated is that there is a fixed set of policy statements, but there are also appendix level statements which keeps reviewing every year, and we make amendments based on the trends that are happening outside. So that's how the IT policy was designed. But great points. I think we'll have to break it and give emphasis on certain specific areas. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Moving on to
my own impression, Santosh, is sometimes people don't arrive as far as appendices 10 and so, I think short, sharp messages which highlight and underline. I think what Srikanth is saying, we should just take what we have and perhaps chop it up and present it as packages. I think there is something to think. There is something to think about here. We will certainly, but the points are very useful. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to, thanks, Srikanth. Moving on to Mr. Nanda Kumar, I think I always get fascinated by what you have done in Suntech. And at the same time, we also, maybe we wanted to see more Suntechs from Kerala. So I know there is no silver bullet to it, but is there any one or two very quick bits that we may want to take it up into the government intervention to enable mid-tier companies like Suntech to grow up? Because there are a lot of interesting startups out there. What we are seeing, just as a reason why I'm posing this question, is there are a lot of very interesting startups that have come out in Kerala. But we wanted to see them into the next year growth, and policies and interventions are there at the startup level. But when we grow into the next year, I'm not sure whether there are enough being understood by the companies themselves, or are we doing enough? So we wanted to just understand from that perspective. You are on mute, Mr. NK.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Yeah. So there are always, you can make a lot of wisdom out of hindsight, right? I mean, you look back, why did you do that? And just go back with that kind of thought process. See, one thing, what happened, maybe I need to put the context. When we did the first project, it was for telecom billing, and within the 1 year, we became the national standard for the whole country, right? So the point is, we got on one side that experience, but then second year onwards, I was wondering, what do I do? The whole market is exhausted, right? So the only option for us was to go global. And this is in 92, 93, I'm talking about, right? I mean, so what I'm saying is that even though we got forced ourselves to look at, but companies starting should always look at the global market and then look at local market only for the local idea only for the incubation, right? I mean, where everything, I mean, just the first principles of design. And also there are two things which I picked up already, nothing more. These two, one is doing more with less, the frugality of that, and everything. And I call this the finesse of engineering, right? Even if you write 5 lines of code, can it be resilient to the core? You never need to touch that. I mean, it is always, I always struggle with associates joining me. The very first thing I ask this question, can a software be without bugs? So the first answer, no, the big no for it, right? I think we need to slightly, it is not about, it's all in the mind, right? The people have got. So there is one aspect. From the government point of view, if I really look at, can we bring in innovation as a culture? Can that be an educational subject? Right? Innovation, there is a methodology which, for example, people like IDEOs and people like that, they've made it to the process of teaching, right? I mean, if you go back to anything which, even if you, in today's world, we are in the artificial intelligence space, right? Why not innovation be process oriented, right? There can be a process. Can we teach the kids? Can we teach them to learn faster? See, in software is all about now moving into learning. So if you really consider those, and the impact of that is phenomenal. And we need, as a humanity, needs to do more with less. There's no need to consume at these level of resources what we're consuming. It is impossible to sustain, at least at the current rate of growth of the population. So there are aspects of this. So I would only take a couple of points. One is that, of course, giving for this companies, giving them the opportunity or giving them capability to look at the global market. And today there's no harm. Finding out, designing your customer, we call it as, right? What do you want your customer to be? And look for a global customer different than what exists today. Reimagining, creating that avatar and preparing for them. And that kind of, maybe I'll just put these 2 points at this point of time. We can definitely go into specific topics. There are things to be done in terms of how you bring in, for example, another phenomenon, you touched upon this in the gig world. How do you bring in collaborative mindset among people? Because one of the biggest, I mean, this is another philosophical dimension. We Indians are intuitively great, but collectively we may not be, right? So how do you build that barrier? The ego plays a major role, and these are some of the constraints which we face. How do you deal with that? So even at the cost of I'm not doing good, I don't want the other person not to be doing good. I mean that. So these are soft factors. I don't have an answer to that, but if you can work on that, that will be. These are factors that you can bring. If you can melt this, we will see a superpower.
Okay, thank you so much. And I also appreciate one point that you spoke to us last time. We keep hearing that Kerala missed the bus, etc. Now the bus itself is being rebuilt. So I think there is a beautiful opportunity now the pandemic has created that we can catch that new bus. So always loved your optimism, Mr. Nanda Kumar. Thank you. Moving on to Professor Prahlad, going from what Mr. Nanda Kumar also said in his topic, he also mentioned about another interesting philosophy called research as a service. Okay, we didn't have enough time to expand. Hopefully we will pick those points at some point in time. One of the constant communication that we used to have, especially as a professor, the question is this industry academia bridge or the gap that keeps coming in the Indian context. You at least in a mild way, you have understood the system related challenges, etc. in the Indian university system, and Kerala is no different from that. And it takes a lot of time for systematic changes within the universities. But are there any one item or two item, again considering the time limit of another 4 minutes we have? Are there one or two items that you wanted to post from your Korea and Singapore academic experience that Kerala universities may be able to fastly adapt, considering the systemic issues? Please don't suggest any systematic changes which may take a long time, but outside of the systematic challenges that we have, are there any one or two items that you wanted to propose?
Yeah, so Santosh, I had a 6 point, which was about education. Do you mind if I share my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So this was about the well-rounded education and translational research and industry interaction. So we can have some kind of a alliance with the Southeast Asia Academy and industry. And bio-digital, a lot of massive investments happen. So we are changing our curriculum in such a way to really have something like engineering in medicine. And this is very hard, especially during the COVID. And I think Nanda Kumar was touching upon the idea of video. This is about brainstorming rules and how to come up with innovation concepts. So I teach this module in NUS, and I think this I suggested in the pre-conference that and facilitated by entrepreneurs, we can have this in all bachelor's degree program. So, and also we have realized that there is no career for lifetime. It's all is going to be lifetime of multiple careers. So how to really create lifelong learning. So, and we have also created industrial postgraduate program. And we have engineering doctorate program from industry. And so the structure is quite different. And we have done a very elaborate approach to create a holistic, confident engineering professional and remove these final exams as much as possible, have continuous assessments, open book examinations, examine the concepts and not the memory. By the way, I studied fully in India. I studied in Malayalam medium, and my biggest problem was I cannot remember things, names. So I had to use PowerPoint. But I'm a researcher, I'm an innovator. So my incapability to memorize should not be my handicap to really do more for the humanity and others. And language is another important aspect. So undergraduate research opportunities program, that's what we do for undergraduates. And 2 years back, NUS went ahead and really made a wonderful system called Graduate Research Innovation Program, where industry players are brought in as mentors. And the PhD research, master's research were translated. And Arvi is my PhD scholars startup. And here, the industry and academia come together. And I think someone was making a comment where lecturers and teachers, academicians can become part of the shareholding. I have shareholdings in the company. So that is very interesting. So as far as the industry is concerned, to be frank with you, lately, a large number of companies are coming to have collaboration with the industry. And one particular system we have is that university or government can give scholarships for industry to come into the university to do postgraduate program, or vice versa. So, and then have more activities in the university, in the research space, and also with the industry. So that is what I would like to say. I don't know, Professor Santosh, I spoke the answer what you wanted.
Yeah, in a larger context, yes, I think we may still need to sit with you and break it down into smaller chunks and see how we can effectively integrate into it without disturbing the larger systematic challenges that the universities currently pose. The good thing is that we have some very forward-looking vice chancellors, both at the Digital University as well as at the Kerala Technological University, who are wanting to make these kind of changes. Interestingly, one little point, it should not take 30 seconds or more. Dr. Ashraf has asked, do you think industry should sit outside the walls of the academy and interact with budding minds only through an industry institution cell or a few talks or hackathon? It's a question to Professor Prahlad. The answer is no, but the question to you is NUS having a policy to have adjunct faculty from industry without this PhDs and other academic qualifications? Do you have any facility for people like, say, me or any other business leader sitting, more than me, any other business leader sitting here can come and take sessions for these students as a credit course and things?
Yeah, so I teach industry 4.0 at the master's level, and I have people coming from industry, and even Frost and Sullivan, someone comes, and also the Additive Manufacturing Center in Singapore, the CEO teaches along with me. So we get benefited a lot. So for me, I read a lot of research papers, and I have to help my research scholars, but a lot of things may not be available for our knowledge unless we interact. So the last 6 months during COVID, I visited a large number of companies in Singapore, and we have seen the digital twins with not purely software digital twin. It's a software plus hardware working together, and this is in Omron. It's a very interesting concept. You can have hardware as a service, and you can put your algorithms there and test it, because so much money is required for hardware. So, and I am working with them, and it is headed by someone, an Indian moved from US to Singapore. And I have already discussed about this particular conference. If you wish to have people, there are people who will be ready to come and help. So we have a large number of adjunct professors. In one particular subject, all the 4 lecturers are purely from industry, no academicians like that. Okay. So I think that is a big role.
Yeah, we definitely will take that offer also to connect with you back. Professor Jairam, I think the conference started 3 minutes late, so I may take 3 minutes extra. I just wanted to go one last round, 1 minute each to all the panelists, if it is okay with you. So going back to Shiblal sir, we are coming to the end of it. Just in 1 minute, is there anything specific that we missed out during the discussion, whether you wanted to highlight to the State Planning Board?
No, I think the discussion has been quite comprehensive. To add to what I said before, one point also I wanted to make additionally was that Kerala should actively build a brand for its products and services, right? Kerala has done an excellent job in building a brand for tourism. So it is not that it cannot be done. There are other parts of the country, for example, if you look at Chennai, for example, they have spent a lot of time building a brand made in Chennai or made in Tamil Nadu. So I think that is equally important, right? The brand creates awareness, it creates market potential, it reduces the entry barriers. So I think that is one last point I wanted to leave behind.
Thank you so much. Mr. Nanda Kumar, over to you. Any last comments, any points? You're on mute, sir. You're on mute.
And it's all been covered. Except one, I think there is an opportunity, because since you have a new university which is just starting digital And probably that should be something which enable the professionals working and uplifting their skill levels, and maybe part-time, and since it's digital, that something would be very useful. That's specifically one point which I wanted to highlight. And
Okay, thank you.
the whole of this innovation aspect, we definitely need to pick up one topic. Ideally, we should go for a product space that, as Mr. Shivalal also mentioned, there is enough if the government gives the first customer benefit to this, the innovation will happen. We are very good at that. Okay, with that,
Okay, fabulous. We don't have Mr. Srikanth and Ms. Rai. I'm just moving to Professor Prahlad. Any last 30 seconds? Anything that we missed out we wanted to state?
I think the young minds, especially millennials, are quite different. So one example I would like to say, I don't use mathematical equations. I use pseudocodes in my lectures. And we need to understand them. If you don't understand them, we cannot innovate with them. So, but they have so much capability. They don't have boundaries like us. Their belief systems are totally different. So that's why I'm heading a residential college. It's a Gurukula system, and amazing they are. So we have to change the academics. If you change the academics, the whole thing will be different. So you have to start from there. So I strongly advise on that side.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Shiblal sir, Mr. Nanda Kumar, Professor Prahlad, and in absentia, Ms. Nivriti Rai and Mr. Srikanth, for the valuable insight. I think we have got loads of very, very useful inputs. Now we'll have to break it down, a lot of work for us. So thanks once again, Kerala State Planning Board, for giving me this opportunity to be along with this esteemed panelist. Back to you, Shalini. Thank you.
Thank you, Santosh sir, and all the eminent personalities. That was a very interesting 2.5 hours of highly packed thoughts from the industry experts. Next, I would like to welcome Professor T. Jayaraman, member Kerala State Planning Board, for summing up of the session. Professor T. Jayaraman is Senior Fellow at MS Swaminathan Research Foundation and previously served at Tata Institute of Social Science, Mumbai. He's in charge of energy, information technology, scientific services and research, and climate change and disaster management in Kerala State Planning Board. Sir, please.
The program schedule lists my task as summing up. And that's by now being rendered, I think, very difficult. Because I think we've had such a conversation, such an outpouring of ideas, invested, I must say, with such passion that, a summing up for 5 minutes is not going to do any justice. But so, first of all, but I must underline this, and the investment of energy, thought, and sheer passion, drawing from your own experience, your knowledge of Kerala, and your larger vision. I think this has been very striking. It has been, I think, for us, for me, as not an industry professional in that sense, the balance in your assessment of what is possible and not possible, strengths and weaknesses, that is very valuable. I think it is very easy to say, you have not done this, you have not done that. There is a place to say those things. But I think you brought your suggestions and advice, a great amount of balance. You told us where we think we can do much better, but you also did that basing it on what you think is possible. So I think that's a very important message. Third is, Kerala has got some things right, and that's very important. Even looking ahead, Mr. Rai's presentation of the COCOMICS, collaboration, the public-private partnership, was enlightening and she invested it with all her energy. And I know that Mr. Srijit of Coconix is in the participant, and I think he should really take a bow as the person who is at the front end of this implementation. So, so there are some things we are getting right. The future has some very important landmarks. I will not touch upon a single detail of any kind. We will, I assure you, go through them in detail. We will go through every minute of the recording that we have of the session to make sure we have understood you. But one first message, I think all speakers delivered, led of course by eminent personality as Mr. Shibulal, is that there is opportunity there. And don't forget that. It's not, there are no buses which have departed forever, missed forever. This is a subject constantly changing, and there is opportunity there. You have to know how to navigate. You have to know what you have to do. You have to know where you are, what next you have to do in very specific ways. And I think both Professor Prahlad and Mr. Nanda Kumar presented a very detailed suggestion of how we go about it. There may be opportunity, but opportunity converts itself into realization. And you get to do something successful, and provided you meet certain conditions. And I'm really delighted that Mrs. Rai emphasized in no uncertain terms the importance of quality. I don't think this is a purely Kerala-centric issue. It's an issue often all over the country. Variety of products. The idea is innovative. The the product serves a purpose. There's a market and demand for it. But at the same time, very so often we regret the lack of finish, the lack of polish, the lack of attention to every last detail. In Kerala, we have had a long-standing discussion, conversation, somewhat acerbic dialogue at times about the quality of our higher education. So I think the emphasis on quality is very important. Things are possible, but you have to do things which are of a high quality. So there is, I think, Mr. Nanda Kumar, said many useful things and important things, but I'm not going to run through them in detail. But there is something that he said, I think, which we need to think through, echoed later by Mr. Shibulal in one way, and this is about India and the SDG goals and the role of digitization, digital technology in achieving these goals. So, Sir, Mr. Shibulal, you spoke of audacious goals like zero carbon or whatever. But I think, for instance, even like mapping our plant health is a subject that is massively undergoing digitization, and AI and machine learning are becoming very key components. There are a number of startups already in the field. How can we leverage this to protect and map and keep track and monitor of Kerala's bioresources? We have these people biodiversity registered, but very few of them are digitized. And so I think, can we have monitoring equipment? The state is certainly very aware of problems of pollution, but can we have cheaply made, low cost, high volume market is there for producing monitoring equipment of water, air, and other forms of pollution, and which can be connected network to monitor pollution and the state of the environment in continuous fashion. I think these are just two things I mentioned because I have some familiarity with them. When you say SDG and in our previous thematic session, energy, smart grids were all mentioned. So I think India, the Kerala, the SDG, and digitization is a very valuable idea. And I think a kind of audacious goals in this, there are numerous ones which can be set. And in fact, the very idea of an audacious goal, even if not for the state as a whole, but at least in the IT sector, is a very important lesson that we need to take up. Mr. Srikanth, I think, drove home that point. I've already mentioned it. I won't dwell on it. That no policy is forever. Policies, this is a world of continuous change. The IT sector in the process, as the Chief Minister mentioned, a revolution began more than 40 years ago, but it is an ongoing one. And so in that process, your policies cannot be static. Your policies have to change with the times. And this is, I think, one of the most significant lessons, learning that I have from his presentation. So I'm not going to continue further. We will, as I said, in point of detail, we will study quite seriously all the suggestions which we have made. All the offers of assistance and guidance, I assure you, will be acted upon. We will be emailing you, calling you, knocking on your doors for such opportunities. I think we need seriously to create a platform for this kind of interaction. I think that is another lesson. This cannot happen only at one conference. There are people who message Professor Prahlad asking for how we could collaborate. So I think we need an open platform where such exchanges are facilitated, not on an episodic basis, but perhaps on a more continuing basis. With these few words, in lieu of a summing up, let me once again thank our eminent panelists, thank our distinguished audience and participants for what has been an important, very important session. The Honorable Chief Minister said that we are here to listen and learn. And I think we have benefited from that count in a very significant way. Thank you once again. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing the gist of the discussion and summarizing it. Now, let me welcome Shri Joy N.R., Chief of Industry and Infrastructure Division, Kerala State Planning Board, to propose the vote of thanks. Sir, please.
Respected speakers, invitees, attendees, and others. Actually, it gives me immense pleasure to propose a vote of thanks. And let me go about it chronologically. At the onset, let me thank the Honorable Chief Minister for his leadership in the organization of this conference and laying out the vision statement which has set the ground for today's deliberations. And thanks is due to Sri Muhammad Safarullah IAS, who heads the Department of Electronics and IT. Your participation is key to taking this sector forward in the future, sir. Thank you, sir. And Dr. Saji Gobinath has been with us in planning and executing the sessions. Today, he has presented a theme which has included points we bring in from our thematic sessions on software and hardware. Thank you, sir. The success of any session depends on its speakers. Today, we are privileged to have with us the biggest names in the IT sector, Sri Shibulal, Sri Srikanth, Srimati Nuradi Rai, Sri Nanda Kumar, and Professor Prahlad, who have blessed the session with their vital inputs, which would help us form a vision of IT sector in which Kerala would have a leadership role. The speakers themselves are leaders in the IT sector, and we are happy to hear from you and learn from you. And thanks a lot for your active participation and finding time with us. Now, let me thank Sri Santosh Kurup, an expert himself and the moderator for this session, for managing and handling the session excellently. Thank you, Sri Santosh, for ensuring the smooth conduct of the session. Kerala State Planning Board is organizing this conference, and our officials need no special thanks. But let me thank our Vice Chairperson, Professor V.K. Ramachandran, for welcoming the August gathering. His overall leadership is a great motivation for us. And let me express my sincere thanks to Professor Jayaraman, Member, State Planning Board, for summing up the session. And he has rightly pointed out how we propose to take forward the ideas which have emerged in the session. He has been leading the organizational aspects of this session right from its inception. Thank you, sir. And I take great pleasure in thanking the participants who have joined the session on the Zoom, YouTube, Facebook, and our website. Your questions and discussions have made the deliberations more interesting. Thanks a lot for your support. And let me also thank the MC for the session, Ms. Shalini, the officials in State Planning Board, and the event management team for working to make this session a grand success. Thank you all, one and all. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. That brings us to the end of the session. Thank you all for joining us in the thematic session on information technology organized by Kerala State Planning Board as part of the International Conference and Consultation Kerala Looks Ahead. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
പിന്നെ അതൊന്ന് ഡയറക്റ്റ് യൂട്യൂബ് പോകുമല്ലോ.